Pep Guardiola to quit Manchester City at the end of this season. An interesting piece here from the Times. Not The Sun, not Team Talk, not some random football journalist, but Paul Hurst from the Times putting out a very interesting piece in the last 24 hours about the end of Pep at Manchester City. We're going to delve into it in more detail now. Do me a favor, please. Like, share, subscribe, hit the hype button. Let's take a look at this big story. You will see these headlines everywhere that Pep Guardiola could leave City as early as next summer amid logical argument that is being claimed. And you only got to search Pep Guardiola's name today, and you will see these articles everywhere. Of course, the Manchester Evening News, The Sun, the Daily Mail, they're all reiterating what has been said by in the Times at this particular moment. And look, before we go any further, I will just say straight away, this time is going to come at some point. There's going to become a time, there's going to become a moment when Pep Guardiola leaves, where Pep Guardiola moves on. He's only signed a 2-year extension last year. But we're going to go into this story in a little bit more detail, but I want to get your views, I want to get your opinions on it. And this is an element of the article here that says Pep Guardiola could very feasibly quit Manchester City as Manchester City manager at the end of the current season, a trusted source has revealed. And with the man himself already having offered a strong indication of his personal successor at the Etihad hot seat. The 54-year-old is regarded as one of modern football's revolutionaries and has transformed Manchester City into serial trophy winners during his time in the Northwest, having been first announced as the Man City manager in February 2016. Moving later that summer from Bayern Munich, the Citizens have won a staggering 15 major honours under his tenure, including the Champions League and unprecedented 4 successive Premier League crowns. Sunday's win over Liverpool at the Etihad was Guardiola's 1,000th in senior management, a record that has seen him rack up a staggering 716 wins and suffer just 128 losses, underlying his remarkable longevity and success. Guardiola's current deal runs out in the summer of 2027, which was signed in November last year. And while he has a history of fulfilling his contract, the Times Manchester City correspondent Paul Hurst, and this is where it's really important, this is coming from the Times. So if you don't, they're not renowned, as far as I'm aware, for their clickbait and their kind of exaggerations of stories. And that's very, very important to remember. Has suggested an exit at the end of the season, his 10th at the helm, could well be on the cards. And whilst he stresses a final decision has not yet been made, he says those with knowledge of the situation feel it would be seen as a logical time to leave because the squad is settled. Guardiola has won everything there is to win, and 10 years is one heck of a shift. Hurst goes on to justifiably justify the possibility of Pep walking off into the sunset at the accumulation of the 25-26 campaign by explaining how prior to his arrival at City, his longest spell in charge of a side was just 4 years. That is his first job with Barcelona. And I think what's really interesting as well is sometimes these stories have come out about Pep and we've covered them before, and it's a little bit of the unknown. This time, to a lot of people, feels a bit different. And a lot of City fans have been on our shows right here on the Football Terrace over the past 12 months saying they don't know if he'll fulfill that 2-year period. It's as though he's helping the club start its kind of squad rebuild, but actually he may leave before the end of it. And City right now are starting to look very dangerous. I think 1 defeat only in their last 14 games, climbing up the Premier League table. Haaland looking amazing. Nico Gonzalez coming alive. Donnarumma at the club. They're in such a settled place now compared to last year, and Pep deserves so much credit for sticking through the tough times with them. I don't know why he wouldn't have done it, but he did, helping to rebuild a squad. But is he going to sign another extension? I'm not particularly sure. And what the article also goes on to talk about is the potential replacements and candidates. For instance, Roberto De Zerbi's name is still on that list, doing very well at Marseille. You've got Areola, who is doing fantastically well at Bournemouth, but a name that is now rising very quickly. The second season at Bayern Munich is going very, very well indeed. And Vincent Kompany's name's on that list. And of course, Vincent Kompany is going to be linked to any type of move to Manchester City, not just because he's an ex-club captain, an absolute legend, but there is the added element that he is doing very, very well indeed as a manager right now. Bayern Munich last year, of course, won the league, but they were a little bit hit and miss in the Champions League. Going into this season, looking at this campaign, it's different. I don't think you could argue that it isn't different in terms of how he's operating and how that team is performing. And I just see that. I haven't watched a lot of them in Germany this year, but I am going off the basis that the amount of people that predicting they could win the Champions League, where last year they were written off, just using that as a little bit of a barometer. But more I read, the more you look at, Kompany's got them purring at this particular moment. Now, his contract with Bayern Munich ends in the summer of 2029. So it's not as though Vincent Kompany is being linked to somewhere else and they've got to move now. But the idea is that Pep isn't going to sign a new 2-year deal. The team is on a really good keel. But if there's the opportunity to bring a manager in now, rather than missing out on that opportunity or it becoming more expensive later on down the line, or, Vincent Kompany signs a further extension at Bayern Munich, which makes it harder to get him out, it's important. If they truly believe that the Bournemouth manager or De Zerbi are truly good enough to replace Pep, it makes sense to move now rather than later, in case a Man United, in case a Liverpool, in case another big team steps in and takes that manager away from you. And if you look at United as an example, planning is key. I know Fergie retired when he did, but he retired at a time where we couldn't quite get Klopp. And by the time we went for Klopp, he was like, I don't like the direction of the club. That would have been different in the summer of 2013. And Pep was on a sabbatical. And instead of waiting for Pep, and I think if we'd have nurtured him, if we'd have befriended him, if we'd have done all these things and we'd have just kept on, you're going to be the guy, we could have waited for it. I think he was in a sabbatical at that point. I'm saying that out loud, and now I'm misremembering the situation. Let me go and check. Let me just Google this. I swear he wasn't managing at that time. Maybe he had already. Let me have a little look. Manager career. Sorry, let me just have a look here. His career statistics, because it helped us. Where is it? Here we go. So, no, he joined Bayern Munich, actually. He joined in 2013. He'd had that year out, though. So he left Barcelona in June 2012 and he joined Bayern Munich in 2013. How Man United didn't have that deal wrapped up for Pep Guardiola, for me, was personally crazy. And even when he was at Bayern Munich, we should have been working towards bringing him in. That's what we should have done. We should have been going, Fergie was the best ever. And Pep's the best in, Fergie's the best in his era, no doubt. Pep's the best in his. Everyone can debate it out amongst themselves which the best of the two is. But for me, that is who we should have been looking to replace Sir Alex with. What's interesting now is I don't think there's any managers in the world that are on Fergie, on Pep's level. I don't even know if there's any now in their pomp. Ancelotti, top-level manager, but on a domestic level, plus European combined, Pep, Fergie, Jose's well past his best now. There is nobody of that level to come in, but you've still got to act while they're going. You've still got to strike while the iron is hot. And if there is a manager you think could be somewhere near that level, you can't allow them not to come in, is the point I'm trying to make. You may agree, you may disagree. I look forward to reading your comments. What does it mean for everybody else? For me, I think this is something for rival fans to be encouraged by. And I'll tell you as to why. There isn't another Pep around. There was another Fergie, and that was Pep. Pep, for me, is a manager that keeps a team at the highest levels on such a consistent basis. Fantastic. I don't know if there's another coach in the world that can do that. So the positive thing from a United fan perspective looking out on this is whoever comes in, I just don't think City will be as good, as formidable, and as consistent over a 4, 5, 6 year period. I don't believe it will happen. That's not a dig at City. It's not digging the players they will or won't have. It's purely a compliment to Pep Guardiola. That's it. The only manager that I truly think could have come into United after Fergie and maintained things if we were being well run, which we were not, would have been Pep. You look at how many other managers. Maybe you could argue Klopp, but again, he's gone now as well, right? He ain't managing. So it's a real interesting one. But it's an interesting time that this has come up. They're not struggling. They're doing well. There's time left on his contract. When these stories have often appeared before, it's been during contract negotiations or during a rough spell at the club or after winning 2 or 3 major trophies, and you think, well, you know, he's at 4, he's at 5 years in, he normally leaves. This is madness. He's been there so long. He's surely going to go soon. This feels maybe a little different. And I'm very aware, by the way, that feeling different to me could also stem from me wanting this to be the case. And I do want Pep to leave. I think it will be a loss for the Premier League because we'll become a weaker league with him leaving. But from a rival perspective, as a Man United fan who doesn't want to see City continue winning, I am so glad this man, I hope this article is real, is not going to stay for another decade. And another decade after that. Well, would he do 30 years? Probably not. But man doesn't have a decade. Who knows how many more Premier Leagues he wins? How many more Champions Leagues he wins City? How many more domestic trophies he wins City? How many more records he breaks? I'm being very selfish when I say this. As a United fan, it's a good thing. It really, really is. Because there's one thing for sure. Fergie ain't coming back out of retirement to win more trophies. He's done what he's done. It's over. But look, if he does go, just gut reaction, who would be the replacement? Who'd be the guy, do you think, to pick up the mantle and continue the progression at City? I'd love your thoughts. I'd love your opinions on that in the comment section below. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you soon. Peace.